Good evening. So before we get started, I kind of have to set the mood, the tone. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about history, ancient history. In a time long ago, the government, our own United States government, was in cahoots with, well, the mainstream media in the United States. Oh, they were in cahoots with all kinds of agencies and administrations, organizations, all kinds of private corporations. And they had us all up in the, well, they tried to have us all up in this tizzy, right? And it succeeded for a fair amount of people. Ancient history here, folks. Oh, wait. Damn. That was last year. Huh. I got a question. I often have questions. My question is, when did we start trusting what the government tells the media to tell us? I'm just curious. Like I said, it's important that I set the tone. I have spent copious amounts of energy thinking through this whole situation with everything going on with this balloon and everything else. And in light of other information, as well as what we know, if you will, we know it flew across. This isn't the first time. This isn't near the first time. In fact, it can be kind of a common or relatively common occurrence. It happens. And I do have an article here. There we go. Multiple Chinese, well, in quotes, Chinese spy balloons entered U.S. before recent incident. Said, more than one Chinese spy balloon has traveled through U.S. airspace in the months and years preceding the most recent encounter, official sources told Fox News on Sunday. This counters claims by former President Donald Trump that his administration would never have permitted such a thing. It said one balloon reportedly crashed into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Hawaii 4 months ago, while another passed through Florida and Texas during the presidency of Trump, the sources claim. Another source told Fox of 4 such incidents preceding the current one. The unnamed officials claims backed up statements from the administration of President Joe Biden that Chinese surveillance balloons had traveled across the continental U.S. at least 3 times under Trump. Responding to those claims, the former president insisted that this never happened. It would never have happened, and accused the White House of spreading disinformation to distract from its own incompetent behavior. It never happened with us under the Trump administration, and if it did, we would have shot it down immediately, he told Fox News on Sunday. Now hold up. I know myself that I've covered balloons that came from other countries that have traveled across the U.S. It's not normally... Okay, I'm not taking sides for China. I'm not taking sides for anyone. But let me say this. That balloon was traveling at some 60-something thousand feet. 63,000 feet, something like that. I believe the F-22 that shot it down was flying at something like 58,000 feet. hit it with an AIM missile. And I wished I could pull back. I wished I could remember an exact, like a date that I could go back and I could, because I know I've covered this stuff. Here's the deal. It's been said before by government officials that, hey, never let a tragedy go to waste. And I think that's what they did here. And I think Trump is trying to likewise not let a quote-unquote tragedy go to waste. And I think that they're all using it for propaganda and political purposes. I believe the U.S. government is. They're using obviously the media, the U.S. media. I believe that Trump is. I think he's using it to try to score, points, campaign points. This is nonsense, folks. Back to my point about it flying at about 63,000 feet-ish. If I'm not mistaken, some of these balloons are capable of going up to like 200,000 feet-ish. Now, why would they fly a balloon low enough that it would be easily seen by the naked eye? If said surveillance balloon could travel at, I don't know, 120, 150,000 feet, where nobody would ever notice it. That same balloon was that high, nobody would have seen it. From my understanding, there are probably a number of undetected balloons that travel. There's a reason why they're used. I don't, and this is just my opinion, I don't think that that was military. I don't think that that was surveillance. I don't. Oh, sorry, I meant to come back up to the... I don't think that that was surveillance. I think there's a very good possibility it was as we were told, and it's some type of weather research or whatever, because this happens. They've only got so much control over those balloons. And beyond that, if you get caught up in too fast moving of a jet stream or whatever, or one going a way you didn't expect or predict, which kind of hard to do, because from my understanding, there's pretty much, streams that they will get caught up in and then kind of just go around the earth in those streams. I believe that in a normal instance, meaning tensions not being so high between nations, meaning not having a supposed president that is trying to make himself look, I don't know, useful, valid, competent, I don't know. But then you've got a former president campaigning to be the next president that's just trying to puff his chest up. And it is what it is. This stuff happens. Again, I'll say it again. You only have so much control with those balloons. I really don't think it was military. Okay, first off, the first time that I questioned whether or not it was a spy balloon was actually when China responded. Because China didn't, when the U.S., accused them of flying the balloon over there, they didn't have a hostile attitude, in my opinion, whatsoever. They said, we're going to look into it. They looked into it. Sure enough, they come back and they say, okay, we do have a, civilian, if you will, research balloon that got away. Why would he, really, would he really have taken a delay to look into things and all that or would he have denied it immediately right there on the spot and just left it at that? Why in the hell would you be guilty of sending a spy balloon across another nation? All right? It just doesn't make sense. Honestly, it doesn't add up. But what does add up is our government and media once again playing games to fearmonger us to support what they want to do. And it's my opinion that is exactly what the hell is going on with this balloon, and pretty well nothing more. China has reacted to the shooting down of this balloon. And I know that there are a lot of people that are jumping on, hold up. Just think for a moment. Just work with me for a moment here. Let's say that this isn't something that's totally uncommon, and it is something that does happen once in a while, and most of the time, I would assume, when this happens, presidents, governments work with one another, they speak with one another, just to make sure that there's no misunderstanding. That's how they should work with one another. Because, you know what? Shit's gonna happen. And when you're doing science, I promise you shit's gonna happen. It's a balloon. It didn't do anything. I'm just saying, I have a feeling that we're being played. And that's why I think China has a harsh reaction to the shooting down of the balloon, because I think they're used to an environment to where this stuff can be worked out and it's really not a big deal. I just think what happened is this one became national news. I don't think normally, if it wouldn't have been spotted, if it wouldn't have went down like it did, and possibly if it wasn't quite so low, I don't know that anybody really would have paid much attention or noticed it. There are balloons, clearly. Here I tracked the wrong one. I wasn't the only one. BP Earthwatch Jesse, he was tracking the same one, the same wrong balloon that I had tracked, and that Project Loon. And, they fly over. Apparently a lot more than we could ever imagine, including probably many of our own. And we don't notice them. We don't even know they're there. This one got noticed. And once it got noticed and once it made national news, everybody started looking up. And the moment that the media, at the behest of the government, started carrying on about how it was a Chinese surveillance balloon. Come on. Anyone in their right mind, it's just mind-blowing here. Anyone in their right mind knows that if that thing was even remotely a threat, it would have been destroyed while it was over Alaska. It would have never went across Canada. It would have never got over the continental United States. That's a fact. That's a fact. We were played. Plain and simple. I would say focus on the important things. Focus on making sure you're doing the things, getting ready getting stuff, because the reality of what's going on in the world isn't going to change either, just because that may not be some super secret spy squirrel balloon, right? We still have, and it could be. I could be totally wrong. I could be totally off base. It happens. I don't know about that one. I think we really need to watch that situation in Russia. That's a given. I think we better keep our eye on Israel and Iran. Things aren't looking good around Syria. Things are kind of heating up North Korea, South Korea. Of course, we've got China, Taiwan. It's crazy. So by no means take your eye off the ball. Lighten up on your preparedness. Because I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to play off whatever the hell it is they're doing. Because the only thing that I can see that the powers that be, and not just our own, but most of them around the world, what I see is them trying to basically bring people to their knees. I mean, the stuff doesn't make any sense to me. No one can make it make sense to me. Right? When you've got energy companies that are bragging about their record profits, and you got people all over the world that are struggling to pay their energy bills because of the higher prices, and then they're bragging about their record profits. Now, mind you, in some cases, governments were subsidizing people's power bills. That basically means it was an energy company bailout. Remember the banker bailouts? That's an energy company bailout. The government subsidizing our electricity is a bailout. Right? Same thing with the student loan deal. Okay? That wasn't debt forgiveness. That wasn't student loan forgiveness. That was a banker bailout, masqueraded as forgiveness. Those loans were paid by the taxpayers. Same thing. I don't know, folks. The dollar's done. Yeah, I'm not just trying to bring a rain cloud out here. But as I've been saying, I'm not seeing light at the end of this tunnel. And I'm not seeing a possibility for there to be a lot of light. And I would rather be honest with you. I'd rather be honest with how I feel to you and be wrong and base you being wrong than what I would rather take the chance of not saying anything and people not being ready. I don't know where we're headed. I'm being completely honest with you when I tell you that I'm a little concerned. I'm a little freaked out. This is big stuff. And come on. I talk about how much of the American society have been pampered. Yeah, much of us, including me. I've said it before, I've had my rough patches in life, but I've not had near the rough patches that many, many, many other people have, right? I haven't been homeless for a long period of time. I haven't battled with a drug or alcohol addiction that I had to fight off and overcome, right? There's a lot of things I'm very grateful that I've never had to go through, to deal with. There's very few times that I was hungry, not by me just not stopping and eating, But, there wasn't nothing to eat. Really, I've certainly never been to the point of close to starvation or malnutrition or anything like that. Might have been hungry a couple of times. Might have wished I had some snacks sitting around or something. But to say that I've even been close to being malnutritioned or starved, no, I can't. I'm 50 years old. And I think that's a testament for how strong a nation can be. I know I'm one person, but there's a whole hell of a lot of us that would describe. And that's pretty awesome. That's a pretty strong nation. But unfortunately, I think those times are over for a while. And I just want people to be ready for it. I think the safety nets are going to go away. I think that I don't know how ugly it's going to get. I have no idea. And I don't have enough knowledge of the history. Because, see, I don't dive deep into any one particular part of history. And I don't know the real in-depth details of the Great Depression and how bad things got. And, a lot of the bad things that happened. I remember the Cliff Notes version that they taught me in school, and that's about it. But I do think that the times we're heading for is going to be worse than the Great Depression. And I think that that's going to be for a number of factors. I think it's going to be not only because I think the financial system is a hell of a lot more dire than at that particular time. Because you got to remember, at that particular time, did we have the debt that we do now? I mean, even if you put it in comparison, did we have even remotely the debt? No. I mean, we're so deep in debt to other nations and probably other alien species, we don't know. Apparently we're in debt to Ukraine. I mean, who'd have thunk it? I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff in this country that we are not in control of. And when I say in control of, I'm talking about manufacturing. I'm talking about products. I'm talking about extremely important things like, medications. The last few years really didn't seem to teach anybody, important, I guess, any lessons, because you would think that after we saw what we did with the supply chain issues because of COVID, you would think that there would be things that would be put into place to start getting manufacturing of these drugs, the important drugs, especially the life-saving drugs, here in the United States, so we no longer had to rely on another nation to provide life-saving drugs to our citizens, especially a nation that we're trading words with and spy balloons. I mean, it makes no sense. It seems like a planned fall to me. It's got to be a planned fall. Because there's no way that the powers that be could possibly be this incompetent. No way. Like I said, I look, I try to figure out, I look at the chessboard, if you will, and I really do think there was a couple of very high likelihoods, things that we really need to be worried about. And I'll say three things. There's three things I think we need to kind of have on our radar. and not spy balloons. By the way, big earthquake in Turkey, like a 7.8. I just got another email from USGS just now, which says a 6.7 in Turkey, and I'm going to assume that is an aftershock. So I believe the first one was a 7.8, and then this one is 6.7. So sorry, I should have mentioned that as I came in, because that was breaking like right as I started the show. Anywho, where was I? Just like I say, make sure you're getting on things. If you need medications, store them up. If you're on life-saving medications, do the best you can. There's unfortunately a lot of things that I don't have answers for. And if you're an insulin-dependent diabetic, for example, I don't got answers for you. I don't. I'm not saying that there are no answers. I'm just saying that I ain't got them for you. But if you're in a position that you take a medicine that you rely on, better be looking into alternatives. And if there are no alternatives, I don't know what to tell you. I don't. I guess you have to be honest with yourself and your loved ones, and make whatever decision you feel best with. That would suck. That would suck. I try to take a fair amount of time and think about these different positions. Try to put myself in these, different types of shoes. And that's one reason why I promote reading the books, like 1 Second After, of course, the Angry American series, the Franklin Horton series. That's why I recommend reading the books. Speaking of the 1 Second After series, for anybody that doesn't know, actually my oldest son's birthday, August 22nd, on August 22nd, the fourth edition, if you will, of 1 Second After, the fourth book, is going to be coming out. Just if folks have read the 1 Second After, there's currently 3 books out now. It's a trilogy. So it's 1 Second After. Oh, hell no. I can't remember. Hang on. Got it right here. Okay. 1 Second After, 1 Year After, The Final Day, and then the one that'll be out in August. Here, I could have brought that over. These are the books. I highly recommend, by the way, if you have not read these, you need to read these. 1 Second After, that's the first one. And then the next one, I believe, is 1 Year After. And then I believe the next one, well, not I believe, that's 1 Second After is the first one, 1 Year After is the second one. The Final Day is the third one, and the one that'll be out in August is 5 years after. And cannot wait. That is a very, very good series. So seriously, if you have not read any of the post-apocalyptic series, I think it's important. That's why I hammer it down. I think it's important. It will help you understand a little bit more, especially in a psychological manner. That's the most I think that you can get from reading those novels. You can pick up a lot of good, good information in there. They talk about a lot of good stuff, a lot of good methods and stuff like that. That's true. But you have to understand it is a novel, and there's a lot of fantasy stuff to it too. So you can't let that get too carried away in your mind. Take the information that you can. Enjoy the entertainment part of it, but take the information that you can. Try to gain a better understanding as far as the psychology of the situation, because I think that's critical. And I think the books do a really good job to help understand that. Hang on here. Oops. I'm trying to get the news out, but I'm not sure what the last thing was I tweeted. So hang on just 1 second. Okay. Sorry. And then the earthquake. Yikes. Okay, let me get this tweeted and I'll bring it into the window here so you can see it. Okay. Devastating earthquake hits Turkey. Multiple buildings reportedly collapsed, burying people under the rubble. A devastating 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck central Turkey early Monday morning, according to USGS, followed by several powerful aftershocks felt all across the region. The jolts caused a widespread destruction, with multiple-story buildings collapsed, according to disturbed footage captured by witnesses. So that's all they have on the situation at this time. Wow. Yeah, that is a substantial quake. Nuts. Okay. Anyway, back to where we were. Let's try to unsquirrel ourselves here. The only other thing I was going to say, as far as the balloon is concerned, is, like I said, they had a reaction to it. They again call it a civilian airship, okay? And again, they claim that it's an obvious overreaction and a serious violation of international practice. Now, I want to make something clear here, because I think a lot of people's going to misunderstand what was said there. Okay? He did not say a violation of international law. And I know that I've heard individuals speak today to that effect, that China's, saying that we broke laws. No. China didn't say that we broke any laws. What they're saying is we violated international practice. That's my whole point of what I was saying earlier about this isn't remotely the first time that this stuff happens, and it's not totally uncommon. And governments, didn't I say that governments normally work together with this kind of stuff, so it's a non-issue, and it's normally completely a non-issue? This is being done to try to garner support for possible military action against China. No doubt in my mind. It's what they did. The United States was propaganda. No doubt in my mind. And that is why they're having this reaction, because it's like, what the hell are you doing, United States? Anyway. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. I can't state it for certain, but I think it was probably just what the claim was. I really do. Anyway, Let's see. Other than that, I got 3 tabs open. The headlines from Friday to cover. And, man, heading into another week. I'm telling you, I can understand if this stuff gets people down. I get it. I normally do pretty good. But, damn. It's crazy trying to keep up with everything. It's crazy knowing just how fragile a lot of these situations are. And it's just like a ticking time bomb, and you don't even know which time bomb's going to go off first. The one thing you do know is that when one of them goes off, though, it's going to set off all the others. That's kind of how I see it. Alright. Let's talk about some stuff. This happened. Train carrying hazardous chemicals derails. A train carrying chemicals derailed in the U.S. state of Ohio late on Friday, causing a massive fire and triggering an evacuation of residents in the area. Some 50 cars from a 140-car train went off the tracks in the village of East Palestine, not far from the state border with Pennsylvania. The National Transportation Safety Board said on Saturday. There were no reports of fatalities or injuries as a result of the derailment, but a massive blaze broke out at the site, which continued burning into Saturday. It's an active fire scene. NTSB board member Michael Graham said several explosions were heard at the crash site on Saturday, according to media reports. Firefighters in East Palestine were forced to work in hazmat suits as the ill-fated train had been transporting chemicals, among other things. According to the NTSB, 10 of the derailed cars contained hazardous materials, including 5 carrying vinyl chloride, a colorless gas used to make tubes for plumbing and other plastic products. I would say PVC. The U.S. National Cancer Institute warns that exposure to vinyl chloride is associated with the risk of several forms of cancer. You know, no big deal. They make your water pipes out of it, right? Right. So far, only a small amount of vinyl chloride was released through special pressure release devices, which are set up on train cars to prevent explosions, the NTSB said. Hey, I didn't make nothing up. Listen, a colorless gas used to make tubes for plumbing and other plastic products. Plumbing, you know, like in your house. And the U.S. National Cancer Institute warns that exposure to vinyl chloride, you know, possibly, like maybe when your water runs through it, could be associated with the risk of several forms of cancer. I'm just, you know, trying to connect the dots, but anyway, the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency told CNN that as of Saturday evening it hadn't discovered any dangerous levels of air contamination in the area around the crash. Experts will remain on site as long as necessary, the agency assured. Oh, I feel confident that they'll handle this. I feel confident that they'll handle it much better than a Chinese spy balloon. Just nuke the damn town. Don't have to worry about the vinyl chloride if there's nothing but a pit. Can't you see Biden again? We're going to take care of it. Big nuke hits Palestine, Ohio. Still don't know what kept me out of the really good schools. Microplastics found in human veins. That's always nice. It's not the first I've heard of this. The first I think I've actually covered it here on the show. No, one other time I think I covered an article. I've got a pretty good memory for that stuff. Microplastics have been found for the first time in human vein tissue, a team of researchers from the University of Hull revealed last week. 5 distinct types of microplastic were discovered in samples taken from the saphenous, or the leg. I knew that, right? You knew that, right? Saphenous leg? Yeah, sure, we knew that. The veins of patients undergoing heart bypass surgery. We were surprised to find them, Professor Jeanette Rochel said in a press release accompanying the paper's publication, plural, that's important, in the journal PLOS 1, PLOS 1. We already know microplastics are in blood, but it was not clear whether they could cross blood vessels into vascular tissue, and this work would suggest that they can do just that. The UK-based researchers found an average concentration of 15 particles of plastic per gram of vein tissue, similar to or higher than the levels found in the lung and colon tissue, but observed that the shape and types of plastic found in the vascular tissue was markedly different from the other tissue types. These first human tissue analyses suggest that the distribution of the microplastics' predominant types may be tissue-specific, Rochel observed. The most common types of plastic found in the samples include alkyd resin, I guess, which is found in synthetic paints and varnishes. Oh, that's nice. Polyvinyl acetate. That sounds very similar to, I don't know, what was that chloride that we just talked about the PVC's made out of? Wow. You don't say. An adhesive, they say an adhesive in food packaging and shipping, okay. Nylon, well, that's good to know that, I don't know, nylons, EVOH, EVA, whatever the hell that is, used for food packaging and watertight lamination. Yeah, because sometimes I go and I have my legs laminated. I know not everybody does it, but, you know. What, you never heard of getting your legs laminated? Let's see. Anyway, talk about how we don't know what the implications are, which is what we've talked about before. Like I said, one other time we covered this, and it would have likely been when it was that they had detected it in the blood. So, anywho, fun times. You know, and I wished we really honestly knew how much of a threat that this kind of stuff was and all that. Unfortunately, we can't rely on the information we're given. And it doesn't seem like we can get very many honest studies in this country. It always typically goes the way of whoever funds the study. It's just, it's a shame. It's a shame. However, Oklahoma, I have to tip my hat to you. Ban on guns for marijuana users declared unconstitutional. Right on. I always thought that was just absolute craziness. A federal judge dismissed charges against a man accused of violating a U.S. federal law prohibiting marijuana users from owning guns, ruling on Friday that the law itself violates his Second Amendment right to bear arms. You know what? I'm pretty sure that any damn thing violates your Second Amendment right to bear arms, because shall not be infringed means you no control. While the government had the right to restrict gun ownership by dangerous people, no, you actually don't, unfortunately, but you don't. it could not claim that Jared Harrison's mere status as a user of marijuana justifies stripping him of his fundamental right to possess a firearm, U.S. District Judge Patrick Wyrick of Oklahoma argued in his ruling. Merely using the drug, which is legal for medicinal purposes in the state, is not in and of itself a violent, forceful, or threatening act, the judge explained. Now, hang on a minute here, because I can tell you that in our state, and I'm pretty sure it's the case if you get a federal charge, like a federal drug charge, but I know in our state that if you got pulled over and you had a joint on you back before it was legal, and you got popped for that joint, do you know that part of your fine was for violent crimes? Because they were trying to say that marijuana was responsible for so much violent crimes that they needed to start charging people that get busted, even with a joint, for the violent crimes that they're supporting and the money that it's going to cost for the government to clean it up. I make a good argument for them, don't I? Yeah, it's a bunch of horse shit. They do it because it's revenue generation. They do it because they know enough people smoked pot that they could generate a lot of revenue that way. And they also learned that they could gain a hell of a lot of control over a hell of a lot of people and deny them, quote unquote, deny them their rights over it. And it's ridiculous. But anyway, you get the gist of this. Right on, Oklahoma. Hopefully this continues on to other places. I think it will. I think that reefer madness is about gone. Pretty much. I don't think it's got much more further to go, and reefer madness will be all gone. And, hopefully Gen X will be having its say in things, and we can get some damn policies in place that make some damn sense. But we got to get control of the damn country back before any of that nonsense could happen. Anyway, we've reached that time. Still haven't heard anything as far as being able to get the video card. Still haven't heard nothing. Nothing. So, who knows? I have no idea. Anyway, that just kind of sucks, And maybe it's nothing. Maybe we're all going to be taken care of and everything will be fine. But, a little bit of communication goes a long way. They've even got a group that they could just simply make a post and let us all know what's going on. But they choose not to. That's the part of it that gets me. Leaving everybody hanging. It's almost like we're being punished. And to be honest, we got screwed. No two ways about it. We got screwed. Anyway, get this up front here. Oh, man. I have a couple of vapes here before I start rattling off the headlines from Friday. Of course, a lot of this stuff you're already going to know about, but oh, man. I don't think there's any other stuffs to tell you about. I tried to see the Chinese spy balloon as it flew over. But it was cold out there, yo, and I'm a pansy. And so, that's the way it is. I could have dressed warm and, stayed out there anyway. For what? I mean, I've got my Nikon, and it's got that 20 time optical zoom. But that ain't nothing. 20 times ain't nothing. And it's, would it be worth the effort? Would I even be able to get the thing to focus on it? Because it is whatever the hell it is, an L840 or whatever. So there is no manual focus. So, even when you do zoom in like that, you got to have a few good lucky charms to get a good focus on. So, wasn't worth it. I didn't really have anything that could capture it that well, so. Let's see. Well, yeah, that's important, right? That's important to eliminate anything that the citizens of the country could use that would circumvent, that would go around government, taxes for master settlement agreements for tobacco. I can't go too far into that, though, because YouTube will swack my pee-pee. So, believe me, they'll swack my pee-pee for that. And it wouldn't be the first time. Because I've had YouTube channels before the Watchman News. So, I've been up the creek without a paddle with YouTube long ago for things like vaping. It is what it is. Alright, let's do some headlines. And tonight seems like a good night, doesn't it? I mean, it's currently 45 degrees Fahrenheit here. Clear skies. Seems like just as good a night as any to, after the show, go out, run around the house screaming as loud as we can, flailing our arms. We'll do that tonight, after the show. Got to keep the neighbors on their toes. Right? Got to let them know what's going on in the world, and let them know that they can rely on you. Not responsible for any fines, nights in jail. Or nights in the mental ward. I'm not responsible. All right, let's do some news. I'm an idiot. All right, Chinese spy balloon breached U.S. airspace, says Pentagon. Really? Never heard anything of it. Serbia and Blue. Knock it off. Nah. Knock it off. Gonna have to chuck a roll of toilet paper at the dog. You hear me? That's a threat. She replied, let's see. Serbia. Serbia and Bulgaria launched construction of new gas pipeline. Switzerland addresses potential energy shortfall. U.S. Senator fears nuclear espionage. A terrorist attack kills one in Russia, says an official. EU nation slams U.S. ambassador over interference. Now, the thing is, though, did he score a touchdown? Or, no? Let's see. Trump calls for restraint in arming Ukraine. John Bolton shares stance on talks with Russia in prank call. Good job, John. Oldest fossilized vertebrate brain found. China ramps up fuel imports blended from Russia crude, says media. Let's see. Central bank gold buying soars to 55-year high. Not on my account, it's not. China responds to spy balloon claims. Ukraine announces new attack guard. Turkey to demand insurance for tankers carrying Russian diesel. Russia responds to calls for international tribunal. EU sanctions, by the way, I know I normally say it repeatedly. This is headlines from Friday. Sorry for those that may not know. On Sunday, our first night back, I covered the headlines from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So normally I clarify that. So my apologies if people are wondering why the hell I'm 2 days behind. EU sanctions on Russian oil may disrupt global supplies, say analysts. Russia shows off advanced tanks. Plan to send U.S. contractors to Ukraine revealed, says Politico. U.S. should get filthy hands on Turkey, or off Turkey. A little misunderstanding there, says Minister. UK military could run out of ammo in a single afternoon, says ex-commander. Probably not a good position. Russia ramps up global food exports. Scientists sound alarm over bird flu mutations. Uh-oh. Tucker Carlson and Boris Johnson exchange jabs. And haircuts. No. Let's see. Turkey and UAE told to cut trade ties with Russia, says Bloomberg. Would be kind of funny if they... Well, I mean, really? Would there be a lot of difference if Tucker and Boris traded haircuts? I mean, the color would be different. Style, though. Eh. They both look like they woke up after a good drunk. Turkey and UAE told to cut trade ties with Russia. Oh, wait, I covered that, didn't I? I don't know. Sanctions on Russian oil not working, says analysts. U.S. delays top diplomat's China trip over balloon. Serbia names greatest mistake by the West. Content production company for RT sister channel ceases operations, citing crackdown on media freedom. Well then. Germany approves retired tanks for Ukraine. Russia wants revenge, says Zelensky. You think? Former colonial power accuses Russia of neo-colonial conduct. Brussels assesses Kiev's readiness to join EU. EU agrees on new price caps for Russian oil. Pentagon allows Ukraine to fire long-range missiles at will. So, just to make sure you're tracking on that, Pentagon allows Ukraine to fire long-range missiles at will. That means wherever they want, whenever they want. Netanyahu hints at Israeli aid to Ukraine. Pentagon claims second Chinese surveillance balloon detected over Latin America, and that may or may not be theirs. To be honest, that could be, ISIS or ISIS or CIASIS. Elon Musk defeats investors in court. Oh, that was yesterday's headline. Okay, now we're on yesterday's headlines. That means I get a sip of coffee and a vape. It's in the contract. Yeah, I was, I'll admit, I was a little on edge. That damn thing flew, right over us. Pretty much literally right over us. If I would have stayed out there and kept looking, I would have spotted it. The truth of the matter is, it was cold, and like I said, my camera really wouldn't have done it a lot of justice, what's the point? So I did go out and look multiple times. I went out and I looked up to try to spot it, and I'm sure it was there. I just didn't spot it. So, but anyway, yeah, flew right over our area. I was watching different aircraft flying around the balloon. There was, I guess it was a refueler that was flying a pattern around. And when I say around, understand I don't mean up at the same altitude. I just mean around the same GPS, latitude and longitude of the balloon. The balloon was like over 60,000 feet, so there's not a lot of aircraft we have that can fly up to those altitudes. The F-22, however, yeah, that's it's an incredible bird for sure. So yeah, it was not a problem for the F-22. I didn't expect it would be a problem for an F-22. He could have did some pretty cool aerobatics up there while he was doing it and really showed off. But they just wanted to take it down and move on. But hey, come on, it would have been cool, right? How awesome would it have been for that F-22 pilot to have released that missile and did a Cobra maneuver? For those that don't know, basically what the plane does is it slows down very quickly, and the pilot throws the nose of the plane towards the sky, and the plane damn near comes to a stop in midair, and the nose just falls down as they let into the afterburner and take back off the opposite direction. That would have been a hell of a display. But he was a little more humble and modest about it. He just took the shot and took a different course and, flew on. You could tell he kicked it in, though, because that sucker was scooting across the sky. Anyway, yeah, that was awesome. That was so awesome. And, for a good job, right? Every good pilot needs to be rewarded for a good job. There was, hang on. There was absolutely credit given for this incredible job. Hang on, I'll show you. I'm working on it. Can't be that hard to find, right? It's just a picture on my desktop. If you knew what my desktop looked like, you'd be like, "Oh shit, we're gonna be here a couple of weeks." No, I'm looking in a manner in which I'll be able to spot it. Oh shit, I didn't spot it. Crap, how did I miss it? Nah. Okay, hang on. Because you gotta see it. I done said it. I done talked about it. There we go. There you go. See? He earned his kill. It's already been painted on his plane. And he's earned his kill. Yeah, I know. I spent a lot of time just to play a dumb ha-ha. But anyway, I reckon we could do news. Yeah, I think that's right. Hang on. I believe that's right. Yeah, hang on. Hang on, let's see. Where was I? Gunman terrorizes Russian Jewish center. Russia responds to latest U.S. escalation. By the way, this is yesterday's headline. Bill Gates lectures Musk on spending. Remember, I got Jen. I got that stuff for gummies. That's what that is. Let's see. Bill Gates lectures Musk on spending. Germans told they're using too much gas. EU faces supply shortages after Russian oil ban, says Bloomberg. Pentagon reports another Chinese spy balloon. Asian state blocks Wikipedia, says media. U.S. must get over its impunity syndrome, says Moscow. China reacts to Blinken visit delay. U.S. announces first transfer of seized Russian assets to Kiev. Let's see. Dozens of Russian soldiers returned from Ukrainian captivity, says Moscow. Germany considers diverting green subsidies to arms production, says Bloomberg. UK water bills to soar by most in nearly 2 decades, says media. No evidence Russia linked to Nord Stream sabotage, says German prosecutor. Uproar after sinking a warship in Atlantic. Apparently, I don't remember all the mama drama behind why the ship. I think it might have had something to do with sanctions or so, I don't know. But the ship, they wouldn't allow it into the dock or whatever. So they just sunk the damn thing. So, and I mean that's crazy because that's like, you know, that's like a lot of steel. That's, I don't know. I think it's crazy. Turkey gives timeline for Russian proposed gas hub. A Donetsk apartment block hit by Ukrainian artillery, says mayor. Planet smashes record for most moons in solar system. EU will face fuel shortages and soaring energy prices, says Hungary. Chinese property market crisis not over, says IMF. Macron calls Putin at Zelensky's request, says Paris. France comments on Ukraine's NATO prospects. Ukraine will burn if it strikes Crimea, Russian ex-president warns. And I do expect that if they make a hit count in Crimea, or, you know, in actual Russia's border, and I'm talking about prior to this event, Russia's border. Yeah, I think things probably escalate real quick like. U.S. officials obsessed with Wagner Group, says media. That's probably propaganda. I don't know. Might not be, but probably. U.S. inmates could be trading their organs for freedom. I thought that was insane. So, yeah, there's a program that they're talking about wanting to put in to where a prisoner could volunteer to let him have an organ to get a year off of their sentence. So you give them a kidney, right? And you get a year off of your sentence. Now, I don't know, but there's a whole hell of a lot about that just doesn't sit right with me. Swiss lawmakers oppose return of tanks to Germany. China helping Russia to obtain key technology, says media. And you know about the balloon coming down. Moscow legitimate target for Ukraine, says MP. Biden explains balloon takedown delay. There's a Photoshop there that I did saying Netflix making a movie deal with the F-22 pilots. Pop gun. Putin didn't threaten Germany, says Scholes. Okay. We are to today's news and another drink of coffee. Oh, better be a good one. I only got a couple left. Right, that Steve, I just looked up and seen what you said. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about him getting 4 more and he'll be an ace. Oh, that was a comment that I was going to make, and I forgot to earlier. While the U.S. government, the U.S. media did a lot of fear-mongering about this balloon, there were a whole lot of people on the interwebs that weren't taking it quite so seriously. And I'll tell you what, the amount of comedic ingenuity over the past couple of days has just been priceless and off the charts. It's been hilarious, especially I belong in some airplane groups, and especially in the airplane groups, it's been a little off the hook. All right. Let's see. Jim. Hey, listen. That's the 15 for that let that's in top. There's only going to be like a couple bucks that comes out of the bank. Look, and you'll see that. That's why I was trying to tell you not to worry about it, because I know what it is. Anyway, not sure where I was. Finnish coal consumption soars. Netanyahu comments on possibility of Iron Dome shipments to Ukraine. So I don't know if they're going to throw in some of their equipment or not. I thought when I very first heard the talk about Israel sending weapons or, really giving any kind of support, I doubted that they would do it. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe they will. So we'll see. Bounty offered for Western tanks in Ukraine. India ditches dollar to bypass sanctions on Russian oil, says Reuters. Russian LNG production hits record high. Former Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf dies at 79. Let's see. Death toll in Ukrainian strike on Donetsk rises, says authorities. Train carrying hazardous chemicals derails. U.S. empire of lies should be investigated, says top Russian MP. Sanctions put global energy supplies at risk, says Gulf state. There was actually more headlines today than I realized there was. Let's see. Well, when I first put them out, I think there was when I first got up, I think there was 13. And then when I put them out, I think there were 16 waiting. But through the day, I guess there was quite a few. Let's see. And when I say that number, not all of those are shared. If it's sports or entertainment or something like that, I don't share that. Let's see. British sailors hospitalized after water contaminated. EU taking big step towards military escalation, says Hungarian official. West blocked Russia-Ukraine peace process with former Israeli PM. EU member to face electricity shortage, says grid operator. I'm actually surprised, based on what they were saying leading all into this winter, that there actually hasn't been a whole lot more issues than there has been, especially over across the pond. Iran pardons tens of thousands of convicts, says media. Putin promised not to kill Zelensky, says former Israeli PM. Wildfires kill dozens in Chile. UK PM poised to ditch human rights convention, says the Times. Microplastics found in... Oh, I covered that, sorry. Abrams tanks might be poor fit for Ukraine, says Financial Times. Well, that was being said right from the beginning, because apparently the Abrams tank is a handful. Apparently it needs a lot of maintenance done. EU and U.S. threaten ex-Soviet republic with sanctions. Multiple Chinese spy balloons entered U.S. before recent... Oh, I covered that. Duh. Israeli ex-PM confirmed peace had no chance in Ukraine, says a reporter. A major blaze hits Buddhist temple in Australia. Ukraine sanctions Russian nuclear industry. You know, I thought about that when I read that headline. It's like, what does that really do? Ban on guns for marijuana. Oh, covered that one. Ukraine to replace defense minister, says lawmaker. Ukraine issues demands to Israel, says media. And I covered the earthquake. And that's it for now. I don't know, like I said, just keep an eye on things. I wouldn't let what went on with the balloon concern you. You know, if anything with that nonsense should be concerning, it would be how the U.S. is dealing with it and using it as a tool to further their agenda. So that's, to me, probably the biggest concerning part of the whole balloon deal. So anyway, I am going to get out of here. I appreciate everybody coming. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow, and I hope to see you then. As always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit, and shalom.